chiropractor for about 19 years now, and 4 years ago, I actually took over a product line when we started Stockton Aloe. I am the aberration on this panel here, because a lot of times I take people that can't eat raw foods, and we teach them to cook their foods a lot, and gradually transition them to a raw food diet. So I'll have a different perspective up here a little bit.
Excellent, thank you. And now we have Sean Herbert. Sean lives in West Palm Beach, Florida, and he's the founder of Got Sprouts with his wife Jody. And would you tell us a little bit more about yourself and that, Sean?
Sure. I am probably the youngest one on this panel as far as a raw food person. I started back in 2006. 2004 I had Crohn's disease, and I learned from these guys basically how to change your diet and how to change your life, and that's where I'm coming from. I started growing sprouts more out of necessity to be able to save myself, to get off all medication and to become the person I am with energy right now. That's really my main thing, is always looking for energy. So I started Got Sprouts back in 2006, provide happy, healthy sprouts that people want to be healthy and happy. So that's where I'm come from.
Thank you, Sean. And now I'd like to introduce to you the man who is sometimes known as the father of the raw food movement, Viktoras Kulvinskas, author of a revolutionary book called Survival into the 21st Century, and he's really up to some fantastic stuff. Viktoras, could you tell us more about yourself and what you're doing now?
Thank you very much. I had been involved in the alternative healing field for well over 40 years, and co-founder of the Hippocrates Health Institute, which is located in West Palm Beach, and many of you have actually visited there. I was at one time a computer consultant and college mathematics instructor, retired at 29 because of degenerative diseases, and I used alternative nutrition to heal myself, and became a colleague of Ann Wigmore's, and we ended up starting the Hippocrates. Presently, basically I'm involved in product development, as well as also I hold retreats during the month of January and February in Costa Rica. We've been doing that now the last 4 years, a lot of international attraction, and at the same time I'm on lecture tours teaching people on enzymatic therapies and enzymatic nutrition. I basically emphasize enzymatic nutrition versus, instead of emphasizing raw foodism or live foods, it's basically enzymatic, so that as long as you're doing enzymatic nutrition, you're really making a very progressive changes. That means either supplements or supplementing yourself with some powerful superfoods, namely, in particular, ferments of sauerkraut, kimchi, and especially the way I design it, you can find it on the internet, where you have extremely high enzyme and high concentration in probiotics and nutrient density. And a lot of my theories nowadays center around actually probiotics as a primary foundation for gastrointestinal nutrition of all life forms. Bacteria is everything. 90% of biomass on planet Earth, which is invisible, it's bacteria. So we'll talk about bugs someday. Thank you.
Thank you, Viktoras. And now I'd like to introduce Alys Marks. She's from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She'll be talking tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. Her topic is Food is Medicine, and she's the co-founder of the Olas Vegan Potluck. Alys, can you tell us a little bit more about your work?
Katharine, yes, I can. I am the co-founder of the Olas Vegans, and my journey started in 1990 when I became a licensed massage therapist. I set up several wellness centers, and I got sick right around 2011 with arthritis and an eye condition, macular degeneration, and they started pumping me with drugs, and I said, I'm stopping this and heading right for Optimum Health Institute. And that's very much like Hippocrates. So I was a missionary there for 3 months, and I cured my arthritis because when I came back, I founded that support group, which gave me the support I needed to continue the raw food diet. the wheatgrass and the colonics and everything basically set me up over a 3-month period of being all raw. I am so delighted to be a part of the Food is Your Medicine movement. And that's what I'll be speaking on at 5 tomorrow.
Great, thank you, Alice. Well, all of our speakers will be giving lectures during the rest of the expo here. I mentioned that about Alice, but certainly all of us are. I think Victoria's has 3 different topics. I wanted to share with you that in 1987, I had fever blisters. I'd had them my entire life. They came all over my face, sometimes from my nose to my chin. It was horrific. In every childhood picture when I was going to school, except when I was a freshman in high school, I had fever blisters. I had them almost all the time, which indicates a weakened immune system. And from the time I was 6, I had psoriasis. I had chicken pox, and everywhere there was a little chicken pox spot, I got psoriasis. So generally people tell you, you know, if you're sick like that when you're a child, your future is not that bright, because what's going to happen? You're going to get worse and worse and worse, right? Well, that isn't my story, because I was fortunate to find another way of life, which was based on working with my body, not against it, and supporting the way it works. And that involved eating more raw food, more living food, more fermented food, as Victoria's mentioned, which is living food, and also sprouts, as Sean will talk more about, which are living when you eat them. As a result of that, now I'm in my 5th decade, almost my 6th decade, and I'm wearing the ears because my birthday's next week on St. Patrick's Day, so I'm celebrating already. And I'm happy to say that I'm free of those conditions, and that instead of feeling worse, you know how people say, oh, after the age of 40 or 50, it's all downhill. I'm finding that it's just the opposite, and that I'm feeling better and better, and that I have the wisdom of the years to actually enjoy that. So now what we're going to do is give each panelist about 10 minutes or so to share with you what they think would be a great contribution and help you. And you will see that each of us up here have a totally different approach to our health care, and you will too. And I just want to say, it's a wonderful, wonderful process, no matter where you are. If you've been vegan for a long time, I see some of you have, and I recognize you, or if you're new to this movement, don't follow one person. Just take everything into account and do what feels good to you, because your spirit inside will guide you. All right, let's start here. You want the microphone down here, Dr. Haley?
Yeah, I'll take this one here.
Okay.
You know, as a practitioner, one of the things that I've noticed in the past couple of years is that things like irritable bowel condition, colitis, Crohn's, celiac disease, there's so many names for these inflammatory bowel diseases, but they're increasing. More and more people have them. People that are on raw food diets have them. People that are, you know, on every diet known to mankind are having these inflammatory bowel conditions. And there's reason for it that people need to realize. We have to identify those things that are damaging our gut flora, our intestinal flora, causing these inflammatory problems, because we're all exposed to them. You can eat the best of foods, and you're still going to be having your gut flora attacked. I'll give you a few examples. If you ask someone what is the thing that damages the gut, most people will jump to something like antibiotics. We know that antibiotics kill bacteria. But what about some of the more subtle things? What about the mercury in the amalgams? What about the mercury in water, or the chlorine in waters? You know, you might buy organic fruits and vegetables that are cleaned, washed in chlorine water. They might be organic at the Whole Foods market, I shouldn't mention names, but sprayed with tap water. There's, you know, radiation landing on the shores of California now, and from what I understand, it's making it in lands that we grow crops on. I think about things like, well, medications, of course. What about the pesticides and the herbicides and fungicides that are in the crops, even the organic ones? Yes, there's, you know, it makes its way everywhere into our diets. Herbicides kill plants. Fungicides target fungus. Pesticides target bugs. But they all kill. And when you think about your flora, this microflora inside your intestines, inside your gut, inside your body, it's sensitive to all those things, and it's being killed off. In the raw food world, I'm a little concerned, because in the raw food world, we don't cook food. So what do we do to make sure it's safe? Let's do high pressure processing. What's high pressure processing? Well, you subject the food to high pressure and it explodes any bacteria, killing it off. It's no longer a live food. It's raw, but it's no longer alive. It also explodes some of the nutrients, so you're no longer having the full benefit of the food anymore. When we are culturing foods, of course, we're replacing a lot of that live quality to it. But what about starting with the healthy live bacteria that's naturally occurring on the vegetation already? You know, a couple thousand years ago, there was something that was well written. It said, and it was this guy, Paul, speaking to his buddy Timothy, put it on paper. He said, stop drinking only water and use a little wine for your stomach and your frequent infirmities. I think it's interesting because back then, nowadays we'd read that and think, oh, use a little wine. Well, he didn't say for your brain, he said for your stomach. See, wine a couple thousand years ago was probably a little bit different than it is now. It was probably more of a light ferment, more like a kombucha. If you've ever made raw grape juice and maybe left it too long in your refrigerator or something like that, you'll notice it'll begin to ferment naturally. And when you drink it, it has this slight fizz to it, and it's live cultures replenishing your stomach, the bacteria in your stomach. That's probably how we're supposed to be eating. Raw foods that haven't been subject to pressure, processing, that hasn't been chemically preserved, and slightly fermented. A lot of the vegetation should probably be that for our stomach, and we also know that the probiotics improve our immune system for your stomach and your frequent infirmities. So when we look at food, I think of getting back to the way it was a couple thousand years ago, and restoring our diets to a more traditional, natural, live diet.
This is a lot of fun for me because I'm sitting here with some great people, and I was diagnosed with Crohn's back in 2006, and one of the first things I did was I went out and started learning about nutrition and what I should be putting in my stomach, because obviously there was something obviously wrong with me at that point. The way that hospitals and doctors kind of treat Crohn's right now in these things is basically by attacking the immune system and putting the immune system to sleep so that you can supposedly heal. I found it the exact opposite. I wanted to boost my immune system to attack whatever is in me that need to get out. One of the things I learned about was Mike was Stockton's One. It's one of the best products I think I've ever had with aloe vera. It coats and soothes and really does a wonderful job for it. Every time I had heartburn or anything like that, I would take this and completely wipe it out. Victoris, wow. I mean, years and years and years of knowledge sitting right next to me. This is a thrill for me, I gotta tell you. And his work with enzymes is extremely, extremely important. One of the things I learned about when I started getting into the raw food movement, it wasn't about raw food for me. I was meat and potatoes all the way. I was dragged kicking and screaming into this lifestyle. And the more you learn, the more you realize, hey, this is the way to go. And the thing about enzymes is all plant foods have their own natural enzymes in them. So your body doesn't have to break them down. If you look at, I always look at marketing, Mike and I talk about marketing a lot. And when you talk about protein, what does everybody think of? Meats, right? Steak. Did you ever try to run a marathon after you ate a steak? No. But if you drink wheatgrass and you drink sprouts and you eat sprouts and things like that, you could run a marathon, because your body doesn't have to take the energy to break it down. And so I think the easiest thing that I learned about nutrition is, when I was sick and I was trying to find energy, and my thing was I didn't have any energy after my surgery, so I really had to come back and I really had to bounce back quick. So the first thing I looked at was I Googled energy, and I pulled up this big picture of the sun. And I was like, all right, all life on Earth originates from the energy of the sun, right? So what on Earth absorbs the sun's energy? Plants, right? So if you want to get the energy of the Earth into you, the easiest way is plants. So then I dug in the garden of knowledge a little deeper, and I got into it, and I found out about sprouts. And sprouts are the most nutritious food on the planet, bar none. You can't beat that. It's 50 to 400 times more nutrition than the adult counterparts. So it's amazing. A little broccoli sprout has got 50 times more nutrition than a head of broccoli. So it was a quick way to get energy into my body. And so then I started digging a little deeper and trying to find out what was in the sprouts that really gave me the energy. And it came down as chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is one atom of magnesium different than hemoglobin found in human blood. And hemoglobin carries oxygen to the blood. So what do you want to do? You want to get more oxygen, you want to cleanse your blood. So that's when I found that out. I was like, all right, which sprout has the most chlorophyll? And that's when I found out about grass. We can go out and do lawn clippings out here and pull lawn clippings and juice them up, and they're just as good for you as wheatgrass. But why does everybody love wheatgrass? It tastes good. That's the only difference. So there's some really just common sense things that you can research about raw food, raw and living foods that really make all the difference in the world. Because we're getting, I'm worried about our kids. We look at, I didn't know anything about raw food when I started this. I'll be totally honest with you. I came into it completely the back end that I had to survive. That's the only way I came into this. But it was interesting because I was here for 2 years, and then I learned about Hippocrates Health Institute, which was 7 miles away from me the whole time. So I've been blessed to be able to be here for you today, and I'm blessed to give this knowledge to you. But basically, you guys have to decide what you want to do with your lives, and you can get some great benefits from living foods, and especially sprouts and aloe vera and enzymes. These are very important things that you need to learn about. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just drop in a little bit of the science behind this whole movement. And if we take a look at New York Times Science section, May 23rd, 2002, they had an article that was basically a summary type of article of much clinical studies, including University of Harvard Medical School, etc. And one of the conclusions drawn that 100% of the Americans on SAD, or standard American diet, were actually sick with inflammatory conditions. They said everybody was saturated with what it was called folded protein. And these folded proteins led your immune system attacking them and trying to get rid of them throughout the 24/7. Every day, every hour. It didn't have time for recovery. In other words, it didn't have to rejuvenate the body during the time when you're sleeping and not eating, and the immune system is fully actively involved. Instead, it was preoccupied with these misfolded proteins. Where do they come from? They come out of the ovens. They come out of your frying pans. They come out of your microwaves. Because under this duress, the disorganization of the protein, such as animal protein, that includes vegetarian protein, it leads to losses. 85 to 90% of the protein gets so disorganized that your own enzymes, digestive, can't convert it into amino acids. And that's all your body can utilize. When these incompletely metabolized proteins gets inside of your system, basically, and they do get inside, John Gaynor, his results in Science News, 1972 show that 60% reduction in oxygen transport. So you might be consuming all kind of chlorophyll greens and stuff like that, but when you're getting a radical reduction in oxygen transport or interference in the movement of hemoglobin and red blood cells throughout your system, you got a crisis, and that crisis is resolved by basically immune function which is cancer. Cancer cells are part of your immune system, and you'll see the whole dissertation on it in the new forthcoming book called Food Enzymes for Health and Longevity that I co-authored with Dr. Howell, the medical doctor who is considered the father of enzymology. And not only that, but also cardiovascular diseases. So, and now medical science are treating cancer like Chinpo Kim with a 79% success recovery without any of their lifestyle changes. In other words, they don't remove the cause. The cause is basically bad choice, dietary choices, and other lifestyle habits, sedimentary life. And yet 79% Chin-Po Kim, Dr. Max Wolf, cardiovascular diseases, 95% success with enzymatic saturation. The number 1 and number 2 killer. Totally reversible with enzyme saturation, or at least partially. Eventually, the toxemia of poor dietary choices, even though you might be doing a lot of enzymatic supplementation, will eventually get you, so you might get a lifestyle extension for continuing your addictive lifestyle habits, you know, associated with what they call comfort food by 10, 20 years. But aging, comfort levels continue to diminish, your athletic abilities diminish, but you stay alive. If you want to be really alive, then you move plant-based diet, and a good reason for it was Dr. Colin Campbell, who him and I are working towards setting up a department, actually, not only setting it up, but we already have set up University of Clayton, the School of Medicine. We're going to have a plant-based nutrition and enzymatic therapy department that will be, the staffing will be basically finished by the end of April, and basically it will be a digital educational center that people all over the world can study enzymatic therapies and plant-based nutrition. We're just few of the faculty on this universal project. So plant-based nutrition, and basically you want to have high green and high enzymatic. High enzymatic means fermentation, whether the fermentation is of nut milks, seed milks, or the fermentation of vegetables. And because I'll be delineating and talking about it in my youthing lecture, which follows this presentation and the workshop. And at the same time, you want to be green. Greens will do the following. They'll protect you from radiation. Studies have been done by basically the United States Navy and Army showing that animals that have been fed on greens survive lethal dosages of radiation. The radiation levels are right now getting higher and higher, both associated with the flares, which are solar flares that is creating basically holes in the ionosphere and creating radical increased radiation, the stuff that is coming out of Japan. And also the fact that our solar system moved into the Milky Way galaxy area where the radiation level is 100 times higher than it has been in the past. And it will be destroying the individuals unless they're on greens. Greens protect you. And also, if you're on live foods, the radiation, all it does is gives you more energy, just like solar radiation. Well, radiation of all sorts can be utilized for good. Then there's also the overall issue is protection against all these carcinogenics. Dr. Chin-Po Kim, a colleague of mine from MIT, did research, showed that wheatgrass, the green juice out of wheatgrass, reduces basically the impact of impact of carcinogenics by over 70-fold. So you have a lot of protection by these kind of things. They help to move heavy metals out of your system, you know, etc. And also the red blood cell count just keeps going up. Right now, a study was done by University of Florida School Department of Agriculture with over 120,000 children involved. 60% of the children attending school had chronic anemia, inadequate red blood cell, inadequate oxygen delivery. No wonder their brain was not functioning. No wonder they were physiologically disabled. So we got to go back to fundamentals. The fundamentals is simple, sustainable diet that is endorsed now by United Nations, the Department of Agriculture and Nutrition, because it's the only one that is going to help to get us out of the greenhouse gases effect. Animal husbandry is the #1 cause of greenhouse gases. And also, it's sustainable. Even 7 or 10 billion people can live on disease-free, mind you. Don't you want to see a planet being disease-free? Well, move it to the green nutrition, stop damaging the food with cooking, minimize your cooked food. You can be healthy according to our research at Hippocrates if you do 80% raw and 20% from whole organic cooked foods. At the same time, if you want to do successful therapies, then do it solely enzymatic nutrition. You know, it might take might take 2 weeks to get over diabetes. It might take no more than 5 months to get over 4th stage breast cancer. We're doing studies right now with Hippocrates and School of Medicine of California. So, you know, at Hippocrates, we get that success. So more live, more nutrition, and follow the holistic path. That means not only nutrition, but exercise. Watch your attitude, because if you've got uncomfort food, Chopra says, if you're not happy with your mate, not happy with your job, or not happy with your life, you're going to reach for comfort foods, and comfort foods will reduce you to nothing, whether they're organic whole foods comfort foods, or they're the ones on the streets filled with addictive drugs that makes you want that and crave that product no more than if you were doing cocaine. So primarily, you know, happiness, and then getting adequate rest, and try to move away out of polluted environment, or at least get some protection. So protection. Love you guys. God is everywhere.
We'll hear more from Victorious. He's going to give 3 talks, and you'll want to be there. And now, Alys, we'd love to hear from you.
How can I follow that? All that information in just a few minutes, and it's mind-blowing. That's why he's the grandfather of the raw food movement. I could be the grandmother at 63, though. Right? 64 in a couple more months. Oh my God. So I can say that I've seen so many people transform over just a few weeks of being on the raw food diet. And moving to sprouts, which are living foods loaded with enzymes, and with wheatgrass and colonics and enemas, doing a really clean detox performs miracles. Oh, when my son, for instance, got sick, he was all swollen, and right away his attorney father wanted to get a tonsillectomy, and he was only like 21, I think, at the time. I said, no, let me just take him to the Optimum Health. Give me 1 week just to detox him. And we did that. He totally got rid of the whole inflammation here. He didn't need a tonsillectomy, and that was only 1 week. And then when you go there, every Friday they had the testimonials, and the people, one after the next, I cured cancer, I cured diabetes. Diabetes, you can see in 2 weeks, huge results on the raw food diet. They give them just a few extra things like avocados and whatnot. But I've witnessed many people. So what we have to understand is that all disease pretty much is 2 things. Either it's a cellular malfunction from toxins getting into your system, or it's that they're not getting the nutrition. So it's a deficiency or it's a toxicity. And that's pretty much it for everything. So when we take something simple like that, we can say, okay, where's the toxins coming from? Is it the water? Is it the arsenic in the water? That I'm not, in my drinking, if you're in Florida, you're getting a lot of arsenic in your water. I don't know if you knew that, but the whole southern belt does. Did you see that? And you're getting a lot of fluoride. And you know where the fluoride comes from? There's 3 sources, and it's not the good one anymore. The sodium fluoride, that's too expensive, so scratch that. It's gonna come from either a discharge from an aluminum factory. How good could that be? Or it's going to come from we got one right here in Florida that feeds all of Austin their fluoride, and it's phosphates and it's fertilizers, and it's not good when it comes out of their pesticides. And so we have to look at also the Harvard test saying that autism in children is caused by fluoride. This is a certified Harvard test study now. So we have to really generate, am I going to drink tap water? And did you know that if you drink bottled water, that there are no, how do you say? Standards for divulging if they're putting fluoride in that bottled water. Katharine knows everything, so she's shaking her head. And it's so true. You could be drinking Dasani with fluoride, and you're not even gonna know it. And what about the little babies being fed these little bottles with extra fluoride added? What is up with that? And to me, it's a travesty that when I read, I'm an activist at heart. That's why I'm here. Because I want to alert you. I want to talk to you. I want to spend my 45 minutes telling you what to watch out for that are the toxins in your life, like the GMOs, and why you can't touch a GMO. You can't touch this. You can't. And I want to tell you what the good foods are, because food really can be your medicine, especially if you grow your own. You know, out of this movement, we see organic farmers springing up all over the place. They're growing everywhere food now. I'm trying to grow it. You know how hard it is to grow food? Unless you plant a seed and then get a tree, and then you don't have to think about it, right? Which the smart people do. But I just want to be here for you, and I want to help you, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Alice. That's wonderful. I'm going to touch a little bit on what each of our speakers said in my 10 minutes. One thing I'd like to start out with is that each of us are unique individuals. And sometimes it's hard for us to grok that, to get that. I like that you're shaking your head yes. But have any of you ever noticed a jigsaw puzzle? I'm not a jigsaw puzzle person, but I've been to the stores where they sell them. And they have boxes of jigsaw puzzles that have over 30,000 pieces. Now, when I tell you that, you're like, wow, 30,000 pieces, that's a lot. That's a big picture that's been cut up into those jigsaw pieces. But when I say to you, each one of those pieces is different, you know I'm telling you the truth, don't you? Each one is different. Each one is unique. Each one has a different shape, different colors, and it only fits one place in that picture. In my mind, that's how we are. We're unique pieces of this puzzle of life. And we all have the opportunity to go for the gusto, to be the best we can be, to put ourselves into that spot in this life that we are the only ones that can fit there. We are unique. We are different. And underneath the speaker's comments today is that premise of how we all have the opportunity to have optimum health, to function in a world and have our needs met and feel loved and feel like we belong and feel like we can feel good and get up every day. And so I wanted to throw that out there and have you think about that and think of it, because self-love is really the foundation for health. At Hippocrates, at Optimum Health, at the healing centers around the world where they teach different ways of healing yourself, whether it's macrobiotics, whether it's doing raw food, whether it's the Gerson diet, they all say, even Dr. Caldwell in his book, which I love, called The Only Answer to Cancer, it says the most important thing is self-love and being honest with yourself about how you really feel. It's okay to have upset feelings as long as you acknowledge them and face them for exactly what they are. Because until you do, you can't go through that. You know, they say the person was upset that they didn't have any shoes and it was really ruining their day and they were whining, moaning, and complaining until they met the person with no legs. I think that's a good thing for us to remember, that wherever we are in life, if we have incredible challenges, those are our challenges, and they're there for us to work through them so that we can be more of the divine person that we are meant to be that piece of the puzzle that no one else can be. And I really want to comment, changing the subject a little, I'm going to jump around a little bit, on detox. everyone knows that if you didn't clean your car for 20 or 30 or 40 years, what would it look like on the inside? We don't even keep them that long. What would your house look like if you never cleaned it up in there? What would you look like if you never got in the bathroom and took a shower? Well, in my way of looking things, this body is a vehicle. It's the vehicle for our spirit, for our life force, for our vitality. And yet most of us slide up to the table, the dinner table, and whatever is down there is just down there. We don't even think about it. Most of us don't even know what's down there, do we? Well, as a nurse, this is one of the things I love to teach about, because your intestines are about 37 feet long. Okay, so once you chew up your food, you swallow your food, and it gets through your stomach. If I walked from here to that wall, that's how long your intestines are. And they're not like a donut with a big old hole in the middle of them, like a tube that everything just goes through. They're more like one of those long balloons that a magician uses that's like this. And on the inside of them, they have villi. And each one of those villi have microvilli. And in reality, if I could go like this at your mouth and like that to the other end of the tube and flip you inside out, just use your imagination, the inside of you would blow up bigger than an elephant, because that's how much surface area there is in your gut. And to absorb food, that food needs to be chewed up, which is going to be one of my healthy tips I talk about tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Chewing and water and so forth. So detoxing is something that you think of as a shower on the inside. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, you're 20 years old, you're 30 years old, nobody even talked to you about detoxing, right? My mother said, enemas? Are you kidding me? People get addicted to those. Just, I'm fine. You know, I have healthy bowel function. I go to the bathroom every, 2 or 3 days. Well, generally on a detox, we take that shower on the inside, we lighten up our diet, okay? So if you're eating a lot of meat, you eat less meat. Maybe you give that up for a while. You get on more fruits and vegetables. Gradually, I think you should do things gradually. You say, okay, I'm off the meat, I'm off the bread, I'm off the white flour, I'm off the white sugar, I'm eating more fruits and vegetables. Now I'm going to eat more raw food. I'm going to eat more greens, I'm going to eat more sprouts, I'm going to eat more fermented foods, and then I might even do juice for 2 or 3 days to give myself a shower on the inside and stop eating things like Victoria's talked about that are toxic for us, or not chewing our food, which might be clogging up our pipes. You know, your small intestine is in there going back and forth like this with your stomach and your pancreas and your spleen and your liver and your gallbladder. So if you're not chewing food up, does it make sense to you that something might be getting hung up in there? Yes or no? Yes. Yeah. Duh. I'm using my nursing education for a good thing here, aren't I? So you want to detox every now and then. You want to give yourself a shower on the inside, lightening up, eating more raw foods, eating more high water foods, and so forth like that. So it isn't a far-fetched thing. It isn't a crazy thing. How many of you have gone on a detox? Great, good, okay, good. How many of you are already eating more raw food in your diet? All right, good. All right, so now we know a little bit more about our audience, don't we? What we're going to do now, does anybody have a question? Or should we let our panel? Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a question. You want to?
Yeah, in the book, The Secret Life of a Plant, you understand the plant has an intelligence and a spirit, and it wants to survive. So in order for you not to eat it, it will release toxins. And Dr. Andrew Weil found out that those toxins can actually make you a little sick if you have that sensitivity to some of those living foods. It made you conclude that the trees offering that food wanted you to eat food off the trees because there was no cruelty involved, there was no death, and then you would plant the seed in the ground and it would perpetuate. But I was wondering, because you guys were talking about your diets, I was wondering if you had held on to something very long and you found out you should have given it up a little sooner, or adding and deleting certain items to to your diet, that, because, you know, just to say a raw food diet is kind of vague, you know, I was wondering if you could narrow it down on like what you have for breakfast, what you have later today, or something like that, just as a personal model and example.
Okay, I hear a couple of things there. You know, one, he was talking about the natural toxins that plants have in seeds so that, you know, they're not eaten up by other creatures before they can reproduce and so forth. And then you were asking, what does a raw food diet really look like? What do we eat? What don't we eat? And I also heard you ask about one of my favorite things to talk about, and that's the things that we really got into and then found out they weren't the best ever. Yeah?
Yeah.
So which question would you like us to answer first?
Well, on your own personal diet, like he went into it, he said he had some real sickness that he had to get into it, and he's a good example. Just
I
wondering
can tell you all the things you shouldn't do.
I like that question. You guys like that question? It's so fun to hear what did we go into big time and then go, oh, learned the hard way. Okay, Sean, you want to take that, get started, or Dr.
Yeah, actually I had a comment on that, because a lot of times, you know, we can look at the foods that we should be eating, but we can't eat them. Meaning, I started talking about some of the things that have damaged our guts, and our guts aren't working like they should. Our guts should have never been exposed to those things to begin with. But there's people that can't eat raw vegetables because their bodies can't tolerate the fiber. It doesn't matter how much they chew them or how much you ferment them, they just can't handle it. They consume raw sauerkraut, chewed up really good, and it irritates their gut. Now, is that a good or a bad food? Most of us would agree that, you know, fresh, home-made, raw sauerkraut would be a good thing. It doesn't have any preservatives in it. Well, how come people can't tolerate them? So we have to now be able to adapt and consider the place that we're at. We are all individuals, and we're at different places, and we've been exposed to different things, and we have to adapt.
Chemo and radiation. And a lot of times people cannot do raw foods while they're getting chemo and radiation.
That's a perfect example. We look at something like that. I mean, how much stronger is chemotherapy damaging the gut flora than antibiotics? Well, now they're missing that first line of the intestinal layer. That's part of the digestion process. What do? You know, you have to adapt. So the right answer, you know, you have those foods, you might not be able to eat them, even though they're the right foods for you to consume. That's why I said, for me, I'll take a lot of patients and actually start them on a cooked food diet, meaning like a vegetable soup or something like that, because as you soften up the fibers, they might be more able to tolerate it. If we're making sauerkraut, we might actually strain the sauerkraut and just drink the juice. Now, when it comes to the more fibrous vegetables, eventually we'll start juicing them to extract the nutrients on them. Hopefully, down the road, as we heal the gut and replace the bacterial flora and stuff, hopefully they'll someday be able to eat raw vegetables and chew them up and digest them the way they're supposed to. So it's kind of meeting people where they're at and trying to bring them to that place of health where they can eat real food again.
And then just for your own personal, so we kind of, you talk the talk and walk the walk. What do you have for breakfast and what we have for dinner or whatever?
I didn't have breakfast yet. But, you know, and I'm certainly not the perfect role model in the foods. We eat very well. We make wonderful choices. When we travel, we don't go to restaurants. We'll usually go to Whole Foods and do our best, as good as you can, at a grocery store, because that's what Whole Foods is. It's not the ideal, you know. At my home, we live here in Pompano Beach. I'm close by, and I can get a lot of food from my yard. We don't have a farm. What we do have is a small, you know, typical 1/5 of an acre or whatever it is that's covered mostly by concrete and home. But on that we have, I think we counted up 17 or 18 different kind of fruit trees. We have our moringa tree. We have, you know, we actually have an aquaponics where there's, you know, fish on the bottom and the feces feed the rock garden on top, and the vegetables grow wonderful out of it. We have obviously aloe vera growing everywhere. We probably have 200 or 300 aloe vera plants, and that's something I think people can eat every day. You know, we have a lot of food growing.
I just took Mike's class a couple weeks ago, and I was watching him do it, but he filleted an aloe vera plant in front of us. and you were talking about the toxins that are on the plant to protect itself.
Yes.
Can you tell me about?
Yeah, it's a lot of things have anti-nutrients on them. Like if you were to consume an orange, is an orange good for you or bad for you? It seems to have this outer layer of protection, and if you were to consume the outer portion, the most orange part, it's like a natural pesticide to protect that plant as it's maturing. But if you remove it, you can eat the orange, just like you would peel a banana before eating the banana. These outer layers typically have anti-nutrients in them which protect them. Aloe vera is very much the same way. Aloe vera, the outer part of the leaf, some people actually consume it to use it as a laxative. Now, I think what it's actually doing is irritating the gut, probably causing it to purge. I can understand where it would be better to use that over a medication if you needed a laxative effect, but you shouldn't need a laxative effect. There's probably something else wrong in your gut that needs fixing first. So you would actually fillet the aloe and take the gel from the inner leaf and avoid as much as of the outer leaf contamination during that process. There's anti-nutrients in the outside of a lot of the vegetation that we're consuming. So, having a mindset of that, which part of the plant should I eat, certainly makes a lot of sense.
Yes, Alice.
I'd like to address your question about breakfast, because this morning I was in a rush. So I didn't have my normal smoothie, which consists usually of 2 bananas and a lot of greens and pineapple. It's always a mixture of fruit and greens. Whatever greens I have, kale, spinach, and whatever fruit I have on hand. So that's my normal breakfast. But this morning I was in a hurry. So I only sliced up 2 oranges and just quartered them and kind of drank them. And then I had hemp seeds because I was in a hurry. I just grabbed a couple tablespoons of hemp seeds, which has the cannabidiol in it that we are all talking about. And what else did I have? I had a 16-ounce glass of water that I put a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda in to alkalize it. And that was my breakfast. And then I asked my friend to please get me a banana because I miss my banana so much. And it's a banana a day that keeps the doctor away. It's not the apple. In the banana, it has 4 times the protein. It has 5 of the B vitamins. It keeps you calm. And it's masterful at curing depression. If you want something sweet, eat 2 bananas. Don't go for the chocolate cake. Go for the raw banana. It is the king. Number 1 choice of all the number 1 athletes in the world. All the athletes eat bananas.
You should work for Chiquita.
Chiquita.
Not really. When they did the interviews of the top competitors for the Olympics in Great Britain, they asked them what they had for breakfast. They had the green smoothie. Well, of course, they threw in a green protein smoothie, banana, but for lunch they had big, huge green salad and some protein. Supper was big, huge green salad and some supper. So big emphasis is on the word green, because green is the power food for animals in the wild, whether you're looking at the power of a gorilla or you're looking at the speed of a deer or an antelope. So basically greens is the athletic superfood.
Sean, did you want to comment?
And sprouts,
Hand sprouts, yeah. That's great.
which are greens.
What did I have for breakfast today? I had a protein powder with a banana. That's what I started with. But I'm going to be juicing wheatgrass a little bit later first. That's going to be my real breakfast when we get there. So, I did read something recently about, somebody was telling a story about a banana, and they said, do you ever notice when you eat a banana, you never want another one? It's because you're actually satiated. You ever eat potato chips and you can eat the whole bag and then you're looking for the next bag? Common sense, people.
That's awesome. There's actually a book online by Nomi Shannon, which I believe she had 26 or 30 raw food people, and it's called What Do Raw Fooders Eat? I'm in the book, and it talks about that. Now, one of the things that I experience is I'm a chilly person, and I'm not a fast metabolizer. But if you're a fast metabolizer, you may be one of those raw food people who just can't seem to gain any weight. So what you're going to have for breakfast may be a little bit different. Or let's say it's the winter time and it's chilly, so you want to stay warm. That's going to be a little bit different than what you're going to eat in the summertime. You know, in the summertime when it's warm, throwing together all the greens and avoiding some of the cruciferous greens, but using things like mint, parsley, as opposed to all the kale in my green smoothie, and then using something like apples as opposed to bananas, which don't have as much sugar, variety for sure. But when I'm in a cold place, I need to eat more. I need to eat more substantially to keep my fire going and warm me up. So I love the chia seed pudding, where you blend up chia seeds, say with strawberries, cherries, and raspberries, and it makes a pudding. You can actually make that pudding by adding hot water to your blender, not boiling, but hot. When you pulverize the chia seeds with the fruit, you come out with a hot porridge. I also dehydrate granola. I'm just going over the things I've had for breakfast over the past week. We had granola every day, where we had dehydrated sprouted seeds and some sprouted nuts, and put in a few raisins and tossed that together and dehydrated it. We then used that as a granola, which we put Brazil nut milk on and made that Brazil nut milk with hot water. And when we stirred it all together, it turned into a porridge. It wasn't like granola anymore in chunks, but it was like a cream of wheat or oatmeal or something. This is when I was just recently in Atlanta and it was cold. And then on top of it, we put cultured coconut cream, where we took the coconut meat out of the coconut and blended it up and put a PB8 probiotic in there, and it was all soured like yogurt, super yum. My friends have to be careful. They hide that from me because I get in the refrigerator and eat it all up. And then on top of that, we put the ground up chia seeds with the berries, and oh my God, it was super yum. That's breakfast from the panel, yes.
One other question that he brought up, which I think is really important for anybody, is there any people that are just getting into the vegan? There's one, okay, a couple, there's a few people. Just getting into it. One of the great questions he brought up was what mistakes have you made? And I can vouch for a lot of them, because I'm probably the newest one doing this. Basically what you were saying earlier, Mike, was what you're doing to irritate your bowels and things like that. I'm coming from Crohn's, so I'm trying to be very, very mellow on what I eat and don't want to irritate anything. But my first experience with flax water was a lot of fun, because I put a whole cup of flax in, and if anybody knows, you're not supposed to do that. And I actually drank it with the flax instead of actually soaking it and then pulling it out. So that was one of the big mistakes I did right off the bat. So don't do that. Whatever I'm telling you, don't do, okay?
It was a flax powder with water?
Yeah. And then chia was another fun one, because I read that the Aztec warriors used to use chia basically as the main food diet. So I would take chia and I put it in a big cup, put it in water, and drink it down. Well, it expands quite a bit, so don't do that either.
I have free recipes online, several recipe books, and I have my cards up here on the corner of the table, so if anybody wants to take my card and email me, I'll send you a free recipe book every week. But I'm really curious, is there anyone else on the panel who would like to share something they did that didn't work out all that well?
Well,
Something to avoid, maybe?
yeah. When I first became a vegan, after I left the Detox program, I had a hankering for bread. And I would try bread. And I think that our bread, the refined bread, it's not good. The glyphosate gut, I call it, because it's so heavily sprayed. The wheat crops are so heavily sprayed now with glyphosate, Roundup, right before and during and after. I mean, it's just all, and so I do eat a little bit of bread, but it's always Ezekiel, and it's about 1 piece a week, because I like bread. And but that's what I limit myself to, is the sprouted grain, because there's no flour in the Ezekiel bread. So if you sprout something, seeds, sprouted seeds, sprouted nuts, sprouted anything, you release the enzyme inhibitor that was in that, and you're now eating something that's a living food. So it's okay for me. It works for me. And there are no two diets that are the same for anybody. We're all snowflakes, right? And our digestive system, each one is different. And you're your own best doctor. Don't give up that responsibility, because then you're asking for it.
Thank you, Alice.
I'll just stop.
Victorious?
Sure, I got it right here.
We got two now.
One of the most common problems is that people are used to, number one, to mushy food, and secondly, large volumes of food because they're in a state of starvation, so they're eating for hope of getting some nourishment, and they're not getting real nutrients, they're just getting fat, starch, indigestible, and quite often indigestible protein. When you start eating more whole foods, raw foods, first of all, it's a good idea to chew your food very thoroughly. It'll backfire on you because it's got all that fiber, and you got to release the nutrients, which is not going to be available, and also it's going to create a lot of discomfort. So slow down your meals and chew a lot. And secondly, cut down on the volume. Most people, and by meaning most, 99% of people that at least in the United States, are enzymatically depleted in a very large scale. I've done demographics, studies, and everything on that. And as a result, you will have difficulty in digesting real foods. And the best supplement to take would be is to look around, whether it's Whole Foods or on the internet, but find yourself some good enzyme supplements. In particular, don't purchase one that has the protease, the amylase. These are components of it listed as micrograms. Always look for products that list with the highest value, but it also lists in the units of activity, like protein would be listed as activities of HUT, okay? And that will make a radical difference. You'll see a great increase in energy because 80% of your energy is tied up in trying to pull off a digestion of cooked meal. And most people, like I said, are severely depleted in enzymes. So taking an enzyme supplement will, first of all, assure a good digestion. It will assure non-allergic response to any of your foods. And if you do have allergies, including celiac, sprue, or gluten intolerance, if you go on a high enzyme saturation, within 2 months you will be free of that allergy. So keep that in mind, because you could be eating the best food, but you could be getting allergic reactions. I was, for the first 2 years when I got started with Ann Wigmore, we didn't know too much about nutrition or what we were doing. We saw some pretty good effects on plant-based diet, and especially when we fed people raw foods and wheatgrass, but we had no concept of enzymes or any of that, and that included myself. I was extremely enzyme starved, including having 21st century disease, which I couldn't stay in a city for more than 6-8 hours before I started having allergic response to the city, and couldn't digest food. I went in Detox, lost about 40 pounds, dropped to 90 pounds, and for 2 years I couldn't put on weight until I discovered enzymology and Dr. Howell's work. And then gradually, through the help of fermentation, through the help of soaking of seeds, through the help of germination, and I was able to put on over 40 pounds in a single year of lean muscle mass. So enzymes are extremely important during the introduction phase of your nutritional programs and changes.
Oh, thank you so much, Victorious. Do you have a quick question?
Yes, quick question.
Yes?
For you, Victorious, I was wondering, does it also work with weight loss?
We have only about 5 minutes.
Dr. Gaitan of Tufts Medical University studies show that everybody who has difficulty in weight loss are deficient in lipase, an essential fatty digesting enzymes. When I ran the Dick Gregory's Morbid Obesity Center, our clients were 400 to 1,000 pounds in weight, and he used a protein drink and and plant-based diet. On the average, people were losing less than half a pound per day. Included also a rigorous exercise program. When I introduced the product that I designed, which was centering around high lipase as well as other enzymes and also herbs to support liver and gallbladder functions, we were losing at the peak 2.5 pounds per day, and on the average around a pound per day, especially for women. Men were losing more than the women. So definitely enzymes will contribute, and a good fiber diet, exercise, and attitude modification.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Victorious. I mentioned my cards on the end. I have a regular monthly newsletter and the free raw recipe books, but I also brought some cards for Jackie and Gideon Graff. They have a culinary academy in Atlanta, Georgia, which is 1 week or 2 week or 3 week. And if you want to grab their card and learn more about that, I'm not going to say a whole lot now, but it's a phenomenal place to learn to make amazing raw foods for every kind of body type. And then I want to go and just ask Dr. Haley, when are you speaking?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll see if we can look that up. Sean, do you know when you're talking?
I'll be at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
And Victorious is speaking 3 times. Do you?
I'm speaking at 12.
Okay.
And 2 o'clock, and if anybody wants flyers on my background and activity, you can get it here up front. Thank you.
Great. And Alys?
I'm speaking at 5 o'clock tomorrow, and I just want to add
Go right
and
ahead.
riff on your culinary mention. There's a new culinary school opening up in Miami. It is by Matthew Kenny. He is partnering with Carla Daskell at the most beautiful Sacred Space, and they're going to have a restaurant there called the White Lotus, which is going to be medicinal culinary feasting. And I am blown away by what they're doing. And if you don't know who Matthew Kenny is, he's an award-winning, I forget the award that he won, but it was like, he started Food and Life in New York. It was the first raw food restaurant in New York. I went there in 2007. They gave you portions like this, and you were charged $100. And it was like a little bit, and you left hungry. But that was the beginning, you know?
Pure food and wine.
Pure food. That was Matthew Kenny. So now he's here. And he's been here, and he's been working here for a while with Carla on this. And she's an impresario of sorts. She puts on parties that are like 250,000, and they look at, you know what I'm saying? This is going to be the biggest thing. So the culinary school that he's starting is going to be outrageous, and it's right here.
Great, thank you, Alys. If you go online to meetup.com, you can put in your zip code and raw food, and you will find that there are lots of groups in this area that you can connect with. Also, if you go on Facebook and just do raw food, you know, Miami or Fort Lauderdale or wherever you are. I started this 30 years ago, and I used to look for people who were wearing Birkenstocks or girls who didn't shave their legs.
No.
And I would beeline to them, introduce myself, and then, are you a vegetarian? I can remember the first 3 raw food people I ever met in Cocoa Beach. So now to come to events like this, or the Raw Living Expo that I just went to, or Longevity Now, and find out that we're a community of tens of thousands, and that there are so many of us who have decades of experience, and so many new folks coming, you know, eating more raw food. Doesn't have to be all raw food, doesn't have to be all the time, but you know, that there's so many more of us that are of this attitude. I just give thanks. I'm like happy all the time because of that. And did you find your talk?
Yes. Tomorrow at 11, we're going to be talking about if raw foods are so good, why are you still sick?
Great, great topic. Okay, thank you, everybody.